Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is going to be my favourite books of the year 2020. Now in 2020 I read over 150 books. It's the most I think I've ever read, probably due to being locked down and not going to work and things, so I had a lot more time for reading, and reading has really helped me this year, you know, in my mental state, and I've just read some wonderful books. However, over 150 books, less than 10% of those were 5-star reads. But I have managed to whittle down the less than 10% to a top 12. I was going to do a top 10, but why do you need round numbers? Let's have a top 12. Okay, starting with number 12, I have managed to put these books in order, although it does get a little bit messy here and there. And at number 12, we have Winter Frost by R.D. Wingfield. This is the 5th book, I think, in the Frost book series, although I have read them all. There's only 6 books in the series. This book was utterly brilliant. It's one of those books that actually I finished it and I gave it like a 4.5 star, but it wouldn't leave my brain, and still to this day it has not left my brain, so I've had to bump it up to a 5-star because it thoroughly deserves it. So this book is about a killer who's killing prostitutes in Denton, as well as a whole other things that's happening. And in this book, the reason why this is 5-star and it wouldn't get out of here is because, not to do with that storyline, but to do with another one that I won't go into. It's a bit made me feel quite uncomfortable, but good uncomfortable in a way. And I was reading it, and Frost finds out who's done it, and he knows who's done it. But he's like, he can't convict them. There's no evidence that said person's done said crime until the very, very end, the last page, the last like couple of sentences, and he gets them, and I'm like, yes! It was such a powerful read, and I love the Frost series, and I think I might do a whole video on book to screen of the Frost series. Let me know if you like that. And I just loved it. You know, these books are quite long. I mean, this book is like nearly 500 pages, but I think I read it in about 2 days. You just get so absorbed. It's so gripping. It's a wonderful series. They're gory-ish. I mean, this is right on the borderline of like too much gore for me, but it's not too much that I can't read it, and I am a wimp. I am a, you know, self-confessed wimp, and I can do it, and it's just, wow, it's so good. I love I love Frost as a detective. Frost is a brilliant detective. So yeah, that has to be in my favourite books. So at number 12. In at number 11, I have 6 Tudor Queens. This is Katheryn Howard, The Tainted Queen by Alison Weir. This is the 5th, another 5th book of their series. This is the 5th book in the 6 Tudor Queens series. Of course, Katheryn Howard. Now, going on from this series, some of this series has been quite hit and miss for me. The Anne of Cleves one, I was not a fan of that at all. But going into this one, I was a little bit apprehensive because Katheryn Howard, through so much of her life, has been seen as this kind of airhead bimbo, not having a clue in the world, and I was really worried about how Alison would portray her. Now, I knew what storyline she was going to take. I was pretty much guaranteed which storyline she would take because, of course, this is fiction, it's drama, it's meant to have that impact, and I was like, right, I know which sort of storyline is going to go down with Katheryn, and it's fine. Don't agree with it, but it's fine. But what I loved was how Alison portrayed Katheryn. She didn't portray her as this airhead. She didn't portray her as this girl that just wanted to get her leg over. She didn't portray her as someone who didn't care about her place. She portrayed her as closer to what I think she is. Not quite where I think Katheryn is, but pretty damn close, I would say, and I think she's done her proud. And oh, this book was so emotional. I got to the end, and then I was getting towards the end, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, okay, I might put it down now, so I've got a bit more to fit, but I had to keep going. And then I got to the end, and I was just like, ugh. And I didn't cry. I mean, I was close, but I didn't cry. I very rarely cry at fiction, but I was close. It's such an emotional read, and the ending is very beautifully done and very respectfully done, I think I should say. I like my historical fiction to be respectful. At number 10, we have Patricia Wentworth, The Listening Eye. This book was first published in 1957, making it one of Patricia Wentworth's later books, but all this was so good. So this book is about a woman called Paulina who is deaf. And she goes to an art gallery because she's actually in one of the exhibits, like she's one of the models for the painting sort of thing. And she's sat there and she's looking at all these different paintings and things. And then she sees two men, and these two men are talking. Were they men? I can't remember if they were men or just people. I'm going to say people for now because I can't remember. It was a while ago. So she sees these two people talking, and of course she's deaf, so she can't hear them, but she can lip read. So she lip reads what they're saying, and she realised what they're saying. It's not nice things. They're not saying, shall we go to the zoo after this and then go to the sweet shop and all this type. No, they're not. They're planning criminal activity. And so Paulina then heads off to Miss Silver, and I don't know why people bother going to Miss Silver when all they do is ignore her advice. So, but this book was brilliant. It was one of the most action-packed Miss Silvers I've ever read, and it was really, really good. So, yeah. Really good. At number 9, we have another Miss Silver. This is The Watersplash by Patricia Wentworth. This one, I think it's another later one actually. This one is 54, so not as late as that one, but it's still one of her later ones because Patricia Wentworth died in 1961. Anyway, so The Watersplash is about a murder that takes place in a little water splash thing, and people thought the victim was drunk, but they weren't. It was murder, and of course Miss Silver comes in to save the day. This was so good. Oh, it's addictive. They're just addictive, and yeah, really, really enjoyed it. Right, next up, in at number 8, can you guess what it is? Da, 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 da. It's another Miss Silver. This is The Silent Pool, of course by Patricia Wentworth, another Miss Silver mystery. I had a great year of Patricia Wentworth Miss Silver mysteries this year, didn't I? So this book is about a woman called Adriana Ford who comes to Patricia Wentworth for her advice. Miss Wentworth comes to Miss Silver for her advice because she believes that attempts have been made on her life. Miss Silver is chatting to Adriana, and Adriana says, actually, I'm going to have this party. And Miss Silver's like, don't have the party. Don't be silly. Why would you have a party when you've got a possible, murderer out there? And she just ignores her advice. I don't know why people bother going to if they're just going to ignore her advice. Anyway, she has the party, and then there is a person found murdered in the swimming pool wearing Adriana's coat. Obviously thought it was Adriana, didn't they? So, again, a really good one. Really enjoyed it. I do love my Patricia Wentworth. Right, at number 7, we have Giant Days. So I've clubbed these all together because they're different volumes but they're the same story. So we have volume 12, 13 and 14. This is the last time you'll be seeing these, I think, in a yearly favourites video, because this one, volume 14, was the last one. This is the last volume. So I feel really sad saying this. All of these books I have given 5 stars to. I think they're all brilliant, and I highly recommend them if you haven't read them already. They're my favourite comic book series about 3 girls, Daisy, Esther and Susan, and their time at university with their friends / boyfriends / ex-boyfriends Ed Gimmel and McGraw. I love it. It's so funny, British humour, quite silly, no big plot line, just their life at university and all things that happen. So fresh as flu, getting drunk, breaking your leg, breaking up with someone, getting back together with someone, running for president, and all these different things that happen. And yeah, volume 14, 2 of the girls graduate. So Daisy is studying archaeology and 3-year degree, she graduates. Esther is studying English literature, 3-year degree, she graduates. Susan is studying medicine, and that is not a 3-year degree, so I would love it, and I fingers crossed hope in the future that perhaps they come back and do 1 or 2 specials, particularly when Susan graduates and, you know, the 2 other girls come back to see her graduate. That would be lovely. But yeah, it's going to be very different now because, of course, when I want to come back to this series, I've just got to reread it. So, but I don't mind. I love rereading it, but it's sad that there's no new ones out because I just think they're wonderful. And if you haven't read them, please do. At number 6, we have Strong Poison by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is the first book in which we meet Harriet Vane. This is my lovely copy. It is a Folio Society edition. So this is the first book we meet Harriet Vane. So Harriet Vane is in the dock. She is accused of murdering her ex-lover, and it's a very difficult sort of trial. Lord Peter is there, he's in the gallery watching, and he pretty much just instantly falls in love with her, and he's like, she didn't do it. I know she didn't do it. And he sees someone on the jury thingy, and he's like, oh, she's a good egg, hopefully she'll go with me. And her and 2 others, they don't agree that she did it, and so they can't come to a unanimous decision, and so the trial is adjourned over the Christmas break, and so Lord Peter has a few weeks in order to work out what really happened. Who did kill him? Was it Harriet Vane? This book, oh, it was amazing. I adored it. I thought it was so good. Before I read this, I had read Whose Body, which was the first one, and I didn't really like it. Then years later, I read Gaudy Night. Really enjoyed it. But the thing about Gaudy Night is if you come to it and you haven't read, you know, say Strong Poison and some of the others in which she does feature, you don't quite get their relationship and the importance of what happens at the end of Gaudy Night without reading the others. And so I would like to go back and read Gaudy Night now I've read all of the others with Harriet Vane in it. And it's such a brilliant book. I know Gaudy Night's going to be a 5-star book when I reread that. This book was amazing, and it showed me how good Dorothy L. Sayers is. And so many people say, oh, I love Dorothy L. Sayers. I've heard people say that they love Dorothy L. Sayers more than they love Agatha Christie, which I was like, excuse me. But yeah, I wanted to love her, and I wasn't, but then I read this and now I do, and I think she's magnificent, and I love Lord Peter. Yes, Lord Peter. Lord Peter, wonderful. And Bunter. I love Bunter too. And Harriet Vane. I'm going to shut up now. My top 5 books of 2020, starting with another Patricia Wentworth. This was my favourite Patricia Wentworth of the year. This is Poison in the Pen. I've done a whole review of it, which I'll link for you up here. This book was amazing. It's about a little village where there is a poison pen writer writing these horrible letters, and apparent suicide takes place. The police ask Miss Silver to go down and kind of stick her nose in where it doesn't belong, but people talk to her, they open up to her, and so she goes down there, and then guess what? Murders take place. It sounds like Moving Finger by Agatha Christie, but actually, this is better. The reason why this is better is because The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie, although it's brilliant, Miss Marple is only in it for the last, like, 3rd quarter of the book. Miss Silver's in this all the way through. And yeah, it makes the book, it's wonderful, and it's action-packed, and it's brilliant, and I just love it. In at number 4, we have Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor. This is a book about a woman called Mrs. Palfrey who goes to end her life at the Claremont Hotel. And while she's there, she's out one day and she stumbles, and this young man called Ludo comes and helps her. And again, I've done a full-length review for it, which I'll link for you up here, but it's about friendships and old age and loneliness, and it's just magnificent. It is spectacular, and if you haven't read it, you really should. I also would like to give a little shout out, I'm sneaking this in. The Soul of Kindness by Elizabeth Taylor was also spectacular. Now, I didn't give that 5 stars when I first read it, but it's one of those books that I can't get out of my head, and I think on a reread it will be 5 stars. So yeah, just putting it out there. Read this by Elizabeth Taylor. Also read The Soul of Kindness by Elizabeth Taylor. Thank you very much. Public service announcement on Elizabeth Taylor. Over. At number 3, I have My Husband Simon by Mollie Panter Downs. This is one of the books in the British Library Room Writers series that started in 2020, and I'm so glad it did because I found this wonderful book. This book first originally came out in the 1930s, and it is about a woman called Nevis who is at the start of the book kind of looking back on her life for the last 4 years since she's been married to her husband, funnily enough, called Simon. Nevis does not really get on with her husband's family. She doesn't really fit in. She's trying to earn her own money, own independence, etc, etc, and she's not the perfect wife for Simon, and Simon isn't the perfect husband for her. Now, this book, I believe Mollie Panter Downs was actually not a fan of this book herself, but oh, I thought it was amazing. It's one of those books that I literally read the first page. Where is it? Yes, here. I literally read like to the end of this first paragraph and I realised it's a 5-star book, and Mollie Panter Downs was an exceptional writer, and I knew I was going to love things by Mollie Panter Downs, and I do, so go read that because it's amazing. Okay, in at number 2, this book's really difficult because part of me wants this book to be at number 1, part of me thinks perhaps it shouldn't be on the list at all. Now, this book I read right at the end of the year, literally the last few days of December. I read it Boxing Day, and then the 27th and the 28th, I think, something like that. Or no, did I read it? Yeah, I think I spaced it out quite a bit. And so this book is a book that I love because of my engagement. So I got engaged on Christmas Eve, which I've spoken about before, and it was wonderful. We got engaged at National Trust, and we were on we did the walk that we did, and then my other half was trying to find a proper place to propose, but it was very busy, and I would have hated a public proposal. He knows me very well. He knows that I would have hated that and felt very embarrassed and be like, oh no. And so he was like, right, let's find this. Obviously I had no idea, but I was moaning, cold, tired, want to go home. And he was like, no, come on. And we went down this walk, and it was a Beatrix Potter walk. And he was like, how funny is that? I was like, yeah, I love Beatrix Potter. We didn't know it was there, and it was wonderful. They had different places about the different animals. So they were talking about like Mrs. Tiggerwinkle, obviously talk about hedgehogs, Jemima Puddle Duck, and they had different sections. It was lovely. And it was on this kind of walk that he proposed. And then afterwards, once I stopped crying and shaking, I went into the second-hand bookshop that they often have at the National Trust, and I saw this. This is Miss Potter, a novel by Richard Maltby Jr., who wrote the screenplay for the film. This is one of my favourite films of all time. If you ask me what my favourite films are, I would say Suffragette, Miss Potter, and Paddington 2. And yeah, I love this film already. And then it was just so funny that I didn't know that this had been turned into a book. And so I read it and I adored it. And I adored it because I love the film, but I also love it because I've got that emotional attachment to it now. I am going to write in this book like the kind of like story of our engagement sort of thing, so I've got it like there forever, and this book is so special to me now that I love it on an emotional level. And of course I gave it 5 stars for that reason. I can't even think of like what I'd give it otherwise. I probably would still give it 5 stars, but yeah, I don't know where it should be on the list. Sometimes I think perhaps maybe it should be first. Perhaps it shouldn't be on the list at all. I don't know, but I had to talk about it because it's a book that I love because it's to do with my engagement. So yeah. Plus, who doesn't love Beatrix Potter? So there we are. And then my favourite book of the year goes to Begin Again by Ursula Orange. So this is published by Dean Street Press. Dean Street Press I found in 2020. This is from their imprint, which is the Furrowed Middlebrow imprint from Dean Street Press, which publishes, similar to the British Library Women Writers series, that publishes women from the 20th century that have gone out of print. And this book was spectacular. I have spoken about this before. I loved it so much. It's about these 4 different women, the time of their lives. They're these young women in the 1930s, and they either have independence or they crave independence, and it was just magnificent. It was so good because it just encapsulated the 1930s beautifully. It was literally like stepping back in time, and I love it when books do that. When books literally transport you. What could be better? I adored it. So there we are. Those are my favourite books of 2020. Let me know what your favourite books of the year were. Let me know if you have read any of these books and if you have enjoyed them as much as I've been enjoying them. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Chat to me in the comments and I shall see you soon for my next video. Bye for now.